If you're always the one healing others, why is your heart still hungry? This is the paradox that lives in the bones of every empath. You can read a room like ancient scripture, sensing what's unspoken, what's breaking, what needs tending. You pride yourself on your capacity to hold space, to soothe, to understand what others can barely articulate. And yet, when someone tries to love you back, something strange happens. The gift feels like a trap. Their affection triggers suspicion instead of safety. You find yourself calculating, wondering what they want, rushing to repay the debt before it accumulates interest. Here's what most people won't tell you. Many empaths don't actually receive love. Not because no one loves them, but because the inner bowl is cracked. Everything passes through. Nothing stays. Imagine a beautiful piece of pottery with invisible fractures. Pour water into it and it appears to function. But slowly the water seeps through those cracks. The bowl never holds what it's given. It never knows fullness. This is the architecture of the empath who cannot receive. There's a teaching at the heart of human psychology and the unconscious mind. One does not become enlightened by imagining figures of light, but by making the darkness conscious. For you, the perpetual giver, this is radical. Your healing doesn't come from becoming more compassionate. It comes from facing what you've kept hidden, the shadow of your own compassion. Here's the uncomfortable truth: knowing how to love and knowing how to receive love are not the same skill. The very mechanisms that make you an extraordinary giver often sabotage your capacity to be loved. Today we're going to unmask that shadow. We're going to dissect why your gift has become your cage, where personal development meets the deep architecture of the psyche, where the patterns you call love reveal themselves as strategies of control. This isn't gentle. There are no 5 steps to fix yourself. What I'm offering is the capacity to be loved, not the performance of it, the quiet quality of letting love land and stay. Before we descend into these depths together, if this resonates with something you felt but couldn't name, hit that like button and share. Your support helps this reach other souls who need to hear it. Because this work, this unflinching look at the mechanics of how we give and receive it, matters. Now, let's begin where all transformation begins, in the wound. You weren't born this way. You were made. Somewhere in your early years, you learned a brutal equation. My value equals my usefulness. When I'm needed, I exist. When I'm not, I disappear. Maybe you grew up where emotional chaos was the weather and you became the meteorologist, reading the pressure systems, predicting the storms. You learned that if you could be attuned enough, you could control the uncontrollable. Or perhaps your home was quieter, but just as demanding. A parent who couldn't hold their own emotional weight, so you carried it. A family system that functioned only because you became its emotional foundation. You learned to read what others needed before they knew it themselves. This is the Carl Jung empath pattern in its formation, not a mystical gift, but a survival adaptation. You became fluent in everyone's emotional language because misreading the signs had consequences. This adaptation worked. People praised you, called you mature, wise beyond your years. You built an identity, a persona, the mask you present to the world of being the one who soothes, who understands, who carries. The kind persona became your ticket to belonging, to mattering, to being safe. But beneath every persona lives its shadow. And the shadow of compassion isn't what you think. It's not that you're secretly cruel. It's not that you don't genuinely care. The shadow of the empath's compassion is this moral superiority, addiction to being needed, and the quiet, terrible power that comes from being indispensable. Let me show you what I mean. When you're the one who always gives, you occupy a position of subtle dominance. You're the healer, the wise one, the strong one. Everyone else is in need, in pain, in deficit. And you're whole enough to give. You're beyond need. You transcend the messy vulnerability of requiring anything from anyone. This is soft power, control dressed as care. You've probably never named it this way. But sit with it. When you rush to fix someone's problem before they ask, whose need are you meeting? When you insist on being the strong one, always, who are you protecting? And from what? The black mirror reflects the uncomfortable truth: I need to be needed. Because if I'm not needed, who am I? If I'm not useful, do I have value? This is the empath's wound. It's written into your neural pathways, your self-concept, your relational blueprint. You've organized your life around giving, because receiving would require something you've never developed the capacity to be vulnerable without being useful. And this is where transformation begins. Not by being less empathetic, but by making the unconscious conscious, facing what you've hidden, accepting that. The most terrifying thing is to accept oneself completely. That includes the parts of you that use kindness to control, that manipulate through self-sacrifice, that need to be needed so desperately that you've made it impossible for anyone to truly love you because you won't let them. Because somewhere deep in your architecture, you believe that being loved means being dependent, and being dependent means being in danger. The crack in the bowl, the place where love leaks through instead of staying it, formed here. In this wound. In this early learning that transformed natural empathy into a survival strategy that now imprisons you. But here's what makes this moment revolutionary. You can't heal what you can't see. And now you're starting to see. The mask is slipping. The shadow is emerging into consciousness. And that's exactly where transformation becomes possible. When someone genuinely tries to give to you no strings, just the simple human impulse to care something in your body recoils. Maybe you smile. Maybe you say thank you. But inside, a cascade of reactions happens. Suspicion, what do they want? Guilt, I don't deserve this. Anxiety, now I owe them. Discomfort, this feels wrong. And almost immediately you're calculating repayment. How can you give back twice as much so you're not in their debt? You call this being considerate, being fair. But it's protection, it's control. And it's the clearest signal that you cannot receive love. Let's go deeper into the mechanisms underneath, because they're structured. They have a psychological logic. First, primal shame. I matter only when I'm useful. This belief is so deep you don't recognize it as a belief. It feels like reality. If someone is giving to you and you're not earning it, then you're lazy, selfish, taking. Second, projection and transference, key concepts in understanding human psychology. When someone gives to you, it can trigger old memories of times your dependency was exploited, times you needed care and it came with conditions, manipulation, a price you're still paying. So your psyche doesn't trust it. It searches for the hidden contract. You're not responding to them. You're responding to ghosts. Third, in Jungian territory, there's distortion in the inner feminine and masculine energies. For many empaths, the archetype of giving and receiving has been wounded. When someone shows up in an active giving role, it feels threatening. It puts you in the receptive position, which your psyche has coded as dangerous. You've organized yourself around being the providing one. Receiving requires you to soften, to surrender control. And control is what you've used to stay safe. Here's the blade. You call it love, but you're negotiating control. Think about your relationships. How often do you let someone see you in genuine need? How often do you let someone love you in the way they want to love you instead of the way you can tolerate? Most empaths don't have relationships. They have projects, people they can help, and they choose partners who need them more than partners who see them. There's a teaching that cuts to the heart. Where love rules, there is no will to power, And where power predominates, love is lacking. You've been in relationships dominated by power disguised as care. You give to maintain control. You self-sacrifice to avoid vulnerability. And your heart is starving. Because you're not in communion with anyone. You're in transaction, in performance, in the exhausting mathematics of giving more than you receive, so you never have to face the terror of being the one in need. But this isn't a character flaw. This is a brilliant, adaptive response to a world that taught you needing is dangerous. The system that saved you is now killing you. Receiving hurts because it threatens your entire architecture. It asks you to trust what you've never trusted. It asks you to believe you can matter without performing. That's why receiving doesn't feel like love. It feels like a threat. And until you face that, until you see how you've confused love with control, care with contract, you'll keep running. You'll keep the bowl cracked. But you won't receive. Not really. Not in the way that nourishes. Not in the way that stays. Let's talk about the thing no one wants to say out loud about empaths. Your compassion has a dark side. And it's not small. It's not incidental. It's not something you can afford to ignore if you actually want to transform. This is where we enter the territory of Carl Jung's shadow work, the practice of turning toward what you've rejected, denied, or hidden about yourself. The shadow isn't evil. It's not your bad parts. It's simply everything you couldn't integrate into your conscious identity. Everything you had to disown to become the person you believed you needed to be. For the empath, the shadow of compassion shows up in 3 faces. And each one needs to be named clearly, without the comfort of spiritual bypassing or self-congratulatory narratives about how you're just too kind for this world. Face 1, pseudo-sanctity. I'm good, therefore I'm right. You've built a moral identity around being the understanding one, the one who doesn't judge, the one who sees beyond the surface. And in doing so, you've created a subtle hierarchy where you occupy the top position. You're more evolved, more conscious, more spiritually mature than the people you're helping. This isn't conscious. You'd never say it out loud. But watch how you respond when someone doesn't appreciate your help. Watch the irritation that flares when someone rejects your care or sets a boundary with you. Watch the slight contempt you feel toward people who are less aware or less compassionate. That's the shadow. That's moral superiority wearing the mask of humility. You believe your kindness makes you better. And that belief gives you permission to occupy other people's lives in ways you'd never tolerate if the roles were reversed. You override their boundaries because you know better. You insert yourself into situations uninvited because your intentions are good. You make decisions for others because you can see what they can't. And when they resist, when they don't want your help, you feel hurt, betrayed, confused, because you were just trying to help. You were being compassionate. How could they not see that face 2 heroic rescuer? You exist to prove I have value. The rescuer needs victims. Not in a cruel way, in a structural way. Your identity as the helper requires people who need helping. And if they don't need helping, or if they solve their own problems, or if someone else helps them, there's a strange discomfort, a quiet panic. Because if they're okay, what's your role? What's your purpose? This is addiction dressed as altruism. You're addicted to being needed, because being needed is how you've learned to matter. So you subtly, unconsciously keep people in need. You don't let them fully solve their problems. You don't actually empower them to stand on their own. Because if they did, you'd lose your purpose. You'd lose your power, and you'd have to face the terrifying possibility that you yourself might be in need. That you might be the one requiring help. That the roles might reverse. Phase 3. Melted boundaries. I disappear so you can exist, and I call that love. Empaths pride themselves on their ability to feel what others feel, to hold space, to be with someone in their pain. But there's a fine line between empathy and enmeshment, between compassion and dissolution. True empathy is the capacity to understand another's experience while maintaining your own separate existence. It's tolerating difference, holding paradox, being with someone without becoming them. But many empaths don't do this. They merge. They dissolve their own boundaries so completely that they lose track of where they end and the other person begins. They take on others' emotions as their own. They make others' problems their responsibility. They carry what isn't theirs to carry. And then they wonder why they're exhausted, why relationships drain them, why they feel used. But here's the uncomfortable truth: you can't be used if you don't volunteer. You can't be drained if you don't open all your channels and pour yourself out. You're not the victim of your empathy. You're the architect of your own depletion. The image that captures this perfectly: the river that runs itself dry. Beautiful in its generosity, life-giving in its flow, and absolutely devastating to its own ecosystem because it gives until there's nothing left, until the riverbed cracks, until the landscape around it becomes a desert. You've made yourself a resource, and resources get used up. Here's where we have to make a crucial distinction, one that reframes everything. Empathy is not dissolution. Empathy is tolerating difference. It's the capacity to understand someone deeply while remaining yourself, to be moved without being swept away, to care without losing your center. What you've been calling empathy might actually be self-abandonment. What you've been calling compassion might be compulsion. What you've been calling love might be the eradication of your own boundaries in service of being needed. And the shadow of all this, the part you really don't want to see, is that it's not selfless. It's not noble. It's deeply, profoundly selfish in its own way. Because it's all in service of maintaining your identity, your safety, your control. You stay in the giving position so you never have to risk being in the receiving position. You make yourself indispensable so you never have to face rejection or abandonment. You dissolve into others so you never have to be seen in your wholeness with all your needs and limits and humanity. The teaching speaks to this with precision. Only the paradox comes anywhere near to comprehending the fullness of life. The paradox here is that your greatest strength is your greatest weakness. Your capacity for empathy, when taken to its extreme, becomes a defense against genuine intimacy. Your compassion, when wielded unconsciously, becomes a weapon of control. This is the shadow of compassion. And you can't integrate it, you can't transform it until you're willing to see it. Not through the lens of self-judgment or shame, but with the clear, unflinching gaze of someone committed to truth. You're not a bad person for having this shadow. You're a human being who developed brilliant strategies to survive, and those strategies now need updating. The armor that protected you is now the cage that confines you, and the only way out is through the shadow, through the uncomfortable recognition of how you've used kindness to control compassion, to avoid vulnerability, giving to escape receiving. This is Carl Jung's shadow work in its essence. This is the descent that makes the ascent possible. This is the darkness you make conscious so that love, real love, reciprocal love, love that nourishes instead of depletes, can finally land. Now we arrive at the transformation, the alchemy, the place where the cracked glazed bowl can begin to be repaired, not through patching over, but through fundamental restructuring of how you hold yourself in relationship to love. This isn't a technique. This isn't something you do. It's something you become. It's an existential shift in the architecture of your psyche. Let's look at the fractures in the bowl, the specific places where your capacity to receive has been compromised. Fracture 1: shame. the fear of having your needs seen. You've organized your entire identity around not having needs, or at least not having needs that anyone else has to attend to. You've become an expert at meeting your own needs privately, quickly, without burdening anyone. You've learned to be low maintenance, easy, uncomplicated. But needs don't disappear just because you hide them. They go underground. They become shameful. They get coded as weakness, as too much as the very thing that will make people leave you. So when someone offers to meet a need before you even express it, or especially when you do express it, the shame floods in. You feel exposed, caught, like they've seen something you were supposed to keep hidden. And the impulse is to minimize it, deflect it, insist you're fine, you don't really need anything, it's not a big deal. This fracture must heal. And it heals through the radical practice of letting your needs be seen without apologizing for them. Of recognizing that having needs isn't a character flaw. It's the condition of being human. And people who love you aren't burdened by your needs. They're honored to meet them. Fracture 2, role addiction. The fear of losing soft power. You've built an identity, a sense of safety, and a relational strategy around being the giver. This role has given you purpose. It's given you a way to control outcomes. It's given you the upper hand, even if you'd never call it that. Stepping down from this role feels like death, like becoming invisible, like losing the only form of power and protection you've known. But here's the truth. Soft power is still power. And power-based relationships aren't love relationships. They're strategic relationships. They're roles playing roles. Receiving requires you to give up this position, to allow someone else to be strong, to let someone else have impact, to relinquish control over the relational dynamic and trust that you can be loved without performing a function. This is terrifying, because it means trusting that your inherent worth, not your usefulness, not your capacity to give, but your simple existence, is enough. That you can be valued for who you are, not what you do. Fracture 3. Self-other confusion. The fear of indebtedness. When you've spent your life with melted boundaries, receiving feels like it creates a debt you can never repay, because you can't tell where the gift ends and the obligation begins. You can't hold both the gratitude and the freedom. You can't accept what's given without taking on responsibility for the giver's well-being. This fracture heals through developing clear boundaries, through learning that a gift isn't a contract, that someone else's generosity doesn't create a requirement for you to perform emotional labor, that you can be grateful without being indebted, that receiving doesn't mean owing. Now let's talk about the alchemical process. Because in the Jungian tradition, transformation follows a specific pattern. And understanding this pattern helps you navigate the discomfort of change. Negrito, the blackening. This is where you see how you manipulate through kindness, how you control through care, how you use compassion to avoid vulnerability. This is the descent into the shadow we explored in the last chapter. It's ugly. It's uncomfortable. You want to look away, but you can't skip it. The darkness must be made conscious. Albedo, the whitening. This is where you begin to distinguish, to separate. Love from power, self from other. Genuine compassion from the compulsion to fix. The true self from the nice persona. You start to see that you're not your role. You're not your usefulness. You're something underneath all that performance. Something more real. Something that exists whether you're giving or not. Rubedo, the reddening. This is the integration, the emergence of something new. What the outline calls the double heartbeat, natural mutuality. Reciprocity without scorekeeping. Relationship as a living exchange where both people give and receive in a rhythm that balances itself without contract or calculation. This final stage is where receivability becomes possible, not as a practice skill, but as a natural capacity. You can let love in because you're no longer using giving to protect yourself from receiving. You're no longer using care to control outcomes. You're no longer fragmenting yourself into the one who gives and the one who receives. You're whole, and wholeness has room for both. Here's the blade that cuts through all the spiritual bypassing and gets to the core. Love isn't being an endless source. Love is giving life a place to stay. You've been trying to be the source, the fountain, the inexhaustible supply, and it's destroying you. Because that's not how living systems work. Rivers that never receive rain run dry. Wells that are never replenished collapse. Even the ocean, vast, generous, life-giving ocean, receives from rain, from rivers, from the natural cycle of give and take that sustains all life. You're not meant to be an endless source. You're meant to be a channel, a place where love can flow through because you're receiving it as much as you're giving it. A place where life can stay because you're not constantly pouring yourself out faster than you're being filled. The alchemy of receiving is learning to trust this, to trust that you can soften without being crushed, that you can need without being abandoned, that you can receive without losing yourself, that love, real love, doesn't require you to maintain the exhausting position of always giving. It requires you to show up, to be present, to allow impact, to let yourself be changed, nourished, seen, held. And that might be the most terrifying thing you've ever done, because it requires you to dismantle the entire protective system you've built, to step into vulnerability without usefulness as your shield. But it's also the only path to actually receiving the love that's being offered to you. The love you've been deflecting, minimizing, and turning away your whole life. The bowl can hold water. But first, the cracks must be seen, understood, and repaired. Not with more doing, not with more giving, but with the quiet, revolutionary act of allowing yourself to be filled. There's a distinction that matters here, one that most personal development misses entirely. It's the distinction between the ego and the self, two terms that sound similar, but point to radically different structures in the psyche. The ego is your conscious identity. It's the I you think you are. For the empath, the ego has organized itself around a very specific image. I am the good one, the understanding one, the one who helps, the one who doesn't burden anyone, the one who rises above petty needs and transcends the mess of ordinary human vulnerability. This ego identity is a PR campaign. It's carefully curated. It's designed to get you love, acceptance, and safety. And it works to a point. People do appreciate your kindness. They do rely on you. They do see you as someone special, different, more evolved. But here's the cost. The ego's need to maintain this image prevents you from receiving love. Because receiving love requires you to be seen in your wholeness, not just in your performance. It requires you to show up as you actually are, with needs, limits, flaws, humanity, not as the idealized version you've been performing. The self, in Jungian terms, is different. The self is the deeper, more integrated center of your being. It's not concerned with image or performance. It's not trying to prove anything. It doesn't need you to be perfect or endlessly giving. It wants truth. It wants wholeness. It wants you to be real, even when real is messy, needy, and ordinary. The journey from ego to self is the journey from performance to presence, from role to reality, from the person you think you should be to the person you actually are. And this journey requires a radical acceptance. You have the right to be loved. Not because you've earned it, not because you've given enough, not because you've been good enough, but because you're a living being whose inherent worth doesn't require justification. This might be the hardest thing you've ever had to believe. Because your ego has invested everything in the opposite belief that you must earn love through usefulness, that your value is conditional, that if you stop performing, if you stop giving, if you stop being needed, you'll be discarded. But watch what happens when you operate from this belief. You don't lose dignity by maintaining it. You lose dignity by living in constant transaction, by turning every relationship into a contract where you overgive to prepay for the love you don't believe you deserve freely. The teaching is precise here. You don't lose dignity by receiving. You lose dignity when you turn love into a contract. Think about the relationships you've had. How many of them have been genuine communion where both people show up in their fullness, give and receive naturally, and allow the relationship to be what it is, without constant negotiation? And how many have been contracts where you calculate your giving, monitor the balance, and stay in control by ensuring you're always in the position of strength? Contracts are safe. Contracts are predictable. Contracts let you control the terms. But contracts aren't love. They're business arrangements with emotional labor as currency. Real love is when the ego relaxes enough for the self to emerge. When you stop managing your image and start being present. When you trust that someone can see you, actually see you in your messy humanity and stay. Not because you're useful, not because you've earned it, but because connection between two real people is more nourishing than any performance. There's a beautiful image in the outline fossilized metals. These are your past achievements in caring for others. The times you were there for someone, the crises you navigated, the pain you held, the wisdom you offered. And they're all fossils now. Impressive, historic, evidence of what once was, but cold, hard, no longer alive, no longer warm. You can't live on past giving. You can't sustain yourself on the memory of times you were needed. Those moments were real and they mattered, but they can't feed you today. They're fossils, beautiful relics of who you've been, but useless for who you're becoming. The self doesn't care about your track record of giving. It cares about your capacity to be present. Right now, in this moment, with all your cracks showing. And here's where the transformation becomes real, when you start to believe, not intellectually, but in your bones, that you deserve to be loved as you are. That receiving isn't weakness. That needing isn't shameful. That being imperfect and human, and sometimes in deficit, is not a disqualification from love. It's the foundation for it. Because only when you show up as your real self can you be actually loved. The performance might get admired. The role might get appreciated. But the self, the messy, imperfect, sometimes needy self, that's what gets loved. The great teaching about this speaks to transformation itself. The meeting of two personalities is like the contact of two chemical substances. If there is any reaction, both are transformed. But you can't be transformed if you're not actually there. If you're performing a role, maintaining an image, controlling the narrative, no real meeting is possible. No transformation can occur. You're protected behind your ego's fortress, and love can't reach you there. The right to be loved isn't something you earn. It's something you claim by showing up, by letting the ego relax its grip, by allowing the self to be seen, by trusting that your imperfect humanity is not too much, not a burden, not a disqualification. It's the only thing that makes love possible. Let's talk about what healthy exchange actually looks like. Because most empaths have never experienced it. You know payback, you know transaction, you know the exhausting mathematics of making sure you give slightly more than you receive so you're never in debt. You know the anxiety of owing someone. You know the control that comes from being owed. But reciprocity, natural mutuality, the kind of exchange where energy balances itself without contracts or scorekeeping. Most empaths have no reference point for this. Here's the distinction: payback is transactional. It's precise. It's calculating. Someone gives you something, and now you owe them an equivalent return. The relationship is a ledger, and you're constantly monitoring the balance, making sure you're not taking too much, making sure you're not vulnerable to the other person's claims. This creates a relationship based on tension, on vigilance, on the constant work of managing accounts. And it's exhausting, because you can never rest. You can never just receive without immediately calculating what you owe. Reciprocity is different. Reciprocity is communion. It's the natural flow of give and take that happens when two people are actually present with each other. You give when you have something to give. You receive when you need. They give when they have capacity. They receive when they need. And over time, without anyone counting, the exchange balances itself. Not in every interaction, not in every day. But in the overall arc of relationship, there's a rhythm, a pulse. What the outline beautifully calls the double heartbeat, two separate hearts beating independently, but in relationship, creating a rhythm together. This is what you've been missing. Because to enter this kind of reciprocity, you have to give up control. You have to trust that the balance will happen naturally without your constant management. You have to believe that you can receive today and give tomorrow, and it doesn't create a debt. It creates connection. The flip line that captures this: you don't owe because you are loved. You simply stay present, so love has somewhere to dwell. Read that again. You don't owe because you are loved. Love isn't a loan. It's not a gift with hidden interest. It's not a favor that needs repaying. When someone loves you, genuinely loves you, not needs you, not uses you, but actually loves you, they're not creating a debt. They're creating an invitation for you to stay, to be present, to allow the relationship to exist. Your only responsibility is to remain present enough, honest enough, real enough, that love has somewhere to land. This is the river seeping upstream, the image that reverses the one-way flow. In a healthy system, the ground also drinks. The soil absorbs moisture. The earth is nourished, not just swept away by the current. And because the ground drinks, the ecosystem stays alive. The river doesn't run dry. The landscape doesn't become desert. You've been the river running one direction, pouring yourself out endlessly. But you've never let yourself be the ground that drinks. You've never allowed yourself to absorb, to be nourished, to receive the flow. And you wonder why you're depleted. Reciprocity requires you to develop a new capacity, the capacity to receive, without the immediate impulse to repay. To let someone's generosity land. To feel the discomfort of being given to and stay with it, instead of rushing to restore your position of control. This is profoundly uncomfortable for empaths, because receiving without immediate repayment feels like vulnerability, like dependence, like the terrifying possibility that you might actually need someone. But here's what you need to understand: interdependence isn't the same as dependence. Interdependence is the natural state of human relationship. We need each other. We give to each other. We receive from each other. And that mutual need isn't weakness. It's the foundation of connection. You've been trying to need no one, to be self-sufficient, to prove that you're beyond the mess of ordinary human dependency. And in doing so, you've cut yourself off from the very thing you're starving for: genuine reciprocity. The kind where both people matter, both people give, both people receive, both people show up in their fullness. The teaching that speaks to this: who looks outside dreams, who looks inside awakens. The impulse to immediately repay, to never be in debt, to always maintain the upper hand that comes from outside. From old conditioning, from wounds that taught you that needing is dangerous, from survival strategies that required you to be the strong one. But when you look inside, when you awaken to what's actually happening, you see this isn't protection. This is prison. You're not keeping yourself safe by refusing reciprocity. You're keeping yourself isolated. Real safety comes from being in relationship with people who can handle your humanity, who don't need you to be perfect, who can give to you without creating debt, who can receive from you without giving up their own center. And you can't find those people or recognize them when they appear if you're still operating from the transactional model. If you're still calculating, still controlling, still using giving to avoid the vulnerability of receiving. Reciprocity without debt requires trust. It requires faith that the exchange will balance without your constant management. It requires the willingness to be in genuine relationship instead of in control. And yes, this is risky. Yes, you might get hurt. Yes, someone might take advantage. But here's what you need to weigh. Is the risk of occasional hurt worse than the certainty of constant isolation? Is protecting yourself from vulnerability worth the cost of never being truly known, truly loved, truly in communion with another human being? The double heartbeat happens when you stop trying to control the rhythm. When you show up with your own pulse, your own needs, your own capacity to give and receive. And you allow someone else to show up with theirs. And you trust that over time, in the dance of actual relationship, a rhythm emerges that neither of you could orchestrate alone. That's reciprocity. That's communion. That's what love actually looks like when it's not being managed, controlled, or transacted. And it requires you to let go, to receive, to stay present even when you're not the one giving. To trust that you can be loved not because you've earned it, but because love is what happens between two people who are real with each other. So what does it actually look like to be someone who can receive love? What are the signs that the transformation is taking hold? That the bowl is repairing, that you're developing the quiet capacity where love can dwell. It's not dramatic. It's not a performance. In fact, it's the opposite of performance. It's subtle, ordinary, easy to miss if you're looking for some grand shift. But if you pay attention, you'll notice three things changing. Sign 1. Undefensive silence. Praise doesn't trigger shame. Someone compliments you, or acknowledges something you did well, or expresses gratitude for who you are, not what you've done. And instead of deflecting, minimizing, or immediately pointing to your flaws, you simply say, "Thank you." You let it land. You allow yourself to be seen in a positive light without the compulsive need to correct the record or remind everyone of your imperfections. This is huge, because the impulse to deflect praise comes from the same place as the inability to receive love. Both are rooted in the belief that you don't deserve to be seen positively unless you're actively earning it through performance. When you can sit with praise in undefensive silence, you're demonstrating that you've internalized a new truth. I can be valued. I can be appreciated. And I don't have to manage other people's positive perception of me to protect myself from the fall when they discover I'm human. Sign 2. Being seen without performing. Usefulness no longer proves worth. You're with someone you care about, and you're not doing anything for them. You're not solving their problems. You're not offering insight. You're not performing emotional labor or being particularly impressive. You're just there, present, human, maybe even a little messy, maybe having an off day, maybe needing something yourself. And you don't panic. You don't rush to restore your value by doing something useful. You trust that your presence is enough, that you can be with someone without performing a function. That connection doesn't require you to be in service mode. This is the sign that you've separated your worth from your usefulness, that you believe somewhere deep in your architecture that you can be loved for who you are, not just for what you do. Sign 3. Allowing impact, letting others touch you and change you a little. Someone offers you something, help, perspective, challenge, care. And instead of immediately having a response, a solution, or a way to maintain control, You let it affect you. You let it in. You allow yourself to be influenced, changed, shaped by someone else's input. You don't have to be the one with all the answers. You don't have to maintain the position of strength. You can be impacted. You can be vulnerable to someone else's presence in your life. This is the deepest sign of transformation, because it means you've stopped using your giving as a defense against receiving. You've stopped using your strength as a shield against vulnerability. You've stopped using your role as protection against the terrifying, beautiful possibility of being truly known. The blade line that captures all of this: love doesn't need you perfect. It needs you present enough to receive. Think about what you've been offering people. Not your presence, your performance, not your reality, your role, not your humanity, your usefulness. And you've been wondering why it doesn't nourish you, why you feel so alone even when surrounded by people who appreciate you, why love seems to pass right through instead of staying. It's because you've never been there to receive it. You've been too busy maintaining the image, managing the relationship, controlling the narrative. You've been so invested in being needed that you've made it impossible to be loved. But when you develop this quiet capacity, when you can receive praise without deflecting, be present without performing, and allow others to impact you, something shifts. The bowl repairs, the cracks seal, not through superhuman effort, not through perfect technique, but through the simple revolutionary act of showing up as you are and trusting that it's enough. This is the capacity to be loved. And it's not something you achieve. It's something you allow, something you become, something that emerges when you stop defending against the very thing you've been starving for. It's quiet. It's ordinary. It's the furthest thing from the dramatic empath identity you might have been attached to. But it's real. And it's the only thing that actually satisfies the hunger you've been carrying your whole life. We've traveled through the shadow. We've seen the cracks. We've named what was hidden. Now we need a new story, a new myth to live by. Because the old myth, the one that shaped your identity, that you maybe even found some pride in, it's not working anymore. And you know it. That's why you're still here, still listening, still willing to have everything you thought was true about your compassion be questioned. The old myth said, the empath is an inexhaustible source, beyond personal need, more evolved than ordinary humans who require care. A healer, a giver, a sacred vessel pouring out endless understanding to a world that desperately needs it. This myth made you feel special. It gave you purpose. It provided a framework for your pain. You weren't suffering from unmet needs. You were transcending need entirely. You weren't lonely. You were simply surrounded by people who couldn't understand your depth. But here's what the old myth cost you: your humanity, your right to receive, your capacity for genuine reciprocity, your permission to show up as messy, needy, ordinary, and still worthy of love. The new myth is different, and it's not less sacred. It's more true. The new myth says the empath is a two-way channel. When the self is present, not the persona, not the role, but the actual self-compassion stops being power and becomes precision. It's not about giving endlessly. It's about giving accurately. Knowing when to give, when to receive, when to step in, and when to step back. Reading the situation, not to control it, but to participate in it authentically. You're not an inexhaustible source. You're a living ecosystem. And ecosystems require input and output, rainfall and rivers, death and decay and regeneration. They require reciprocity. Your gift isn't that you can give endlessly. Your gift is that you can feel deeply. And when that feeling is connected to your own self, to your own grounded presence, it becomes precise. You can distinguish between when someone actually needs help and when your rescuer complex is being triggered. You can tell the difference between genuine compassion and the compulsion to fix. You can give from fullness instead of from the desperate need to prove your worth. This new myth doesn't make you less empathetic. It makes you more discerning, more boundaried, more real. And here's the crystallizing line, the one to carry forward. You're not lost in love. You're filtering patterns that were mislabeled as love. You've been lost, confused, exhausted by relationships that drain you, hurt by people who seem to use your kindness, angry at a world that takes and gives nothing back. But you weren't lost in love. You were lost in patterns. Patterns of control disguised as care, self-sacrifice masquerading as compassion, transactions mislabeled as connection. And now you're filtering. You're starting to see the difference between love and neediness, between genuine reciprocity and codependence, between being valued for who you are and being used for what you do. This filtering isn't cynicism. It's not closing your heart. It's not becoming less caring. It's becoming more discerning. It's learning to direct your enormous capacity for empathy toward people and situations where it's actually generative, where it creates genuine connection, where it's reciprocated. The teaching that bookends this journey. There is no coming to consciousness without pain. You've felt the pain, the discomfort of seeing your shadow, the grief of recognizing how you've used compassion to control, the terror of imagining yourself in the receptive position, needing vulnerable, not in control. But this pain isn't punishment. It's the price of consciousness. It's what it costs to wake up from the trance of your old patterns and step into something more real. And on the other side of this pain, there's a different way of being, one where you can give without depleting yourself, receive without shame, be in relationship without constant vigilance, love without transaction. There's the capacity to be loved, not as a role, not as a function, but as a whole, imperfect, gloriously human being whose worth doesn't require proof. The crack-glazed bowl can be repaired. The river can learn to seep upstream to receive as much as it gives. The black mirror can reflect not just the shadow, but the integrated self-light and dark, giving and receiving, strong and vulnerable. And the double heartbeat. That rhythm of natural mutuality where two people give and receive without scorekeeping, where love balances itself because both people are actually present, that becomes possible. Not because you fixed yourself, not because you earned it, but because you did the hardest work. You faced what was hidden, you integrated what you'd rejected, and you showed up as you actually are. That's the new myth. That's the path forward. That's what makes love real love, reciprocal love, that nourishes instead of depletes, finally possible. Before we part, I want to leave you with 3 questions, not to answer right now, but to carry with you, to sit with, to let work on you over the next 24 hours. Because transformation doesn't happen in the moment you understand something. It happens in the days and weeks after, when the understanding settles into your bones and starts to change how you show up. Question 1. If you didn't need to be useful, how much love could you actually tolerate? Sit with this. Really imagine it. Imagine someone loving you, not because you helped them, not because you understood them, not because you were there in their crisis. Just because. Just for existing. Just for being you. How long could you tolerate that before you felt the need to do something, fix something, prove something? How much pure love that asks nothing of you? Can you actually let in? Question 2. Which part of you calls itself compassion, but is really fear of losing control? Look at your relationships, your patterns of giving, the situations where you rush to help, and ask, is this actually compassion, or is this my need to maintain a certain position, a certain image, a certain form of soft power? Where is your kindness actually kindness, and where is it control disguised in beautiful language? Question 3. Do you want relationships to trade or to remain? And this is the fundamental choice. Trading is safe. Trading keeps you in control. Trading lets you manage the terms, calculate the balance, protect yourself from vulnerability. But remaining is being present even when you're not useful. Staying even when the dynamic shifts and you're not the strong one. Continuing even when reciprocity looks messy and uneven in the moment. Do you want relationships you can control or relationships that are real? Sit with these questions. Let them disturb you a little. Let them reveal things you haven't wanted to see. Because that discomfort, that's the beginning of transformation. If this journey has resonated with you, if something in these words has named what you've been feeling but couldn't articulate, I want to invite you to do two things. First, hit that like button and subscribe to this channel. Because this work, this deep exploration of human psychology, this unflinching look at the patterns that shape us, this commitment to truth over comfort, it needs to reach the people who are ready for it. Your engagement helps make that possible. Second, leave a comment. Tell me what question hit hardest. Tell me what you're realizing about your own patterns. Share your experience of learning to receive. Because this work isn't just individual, it's collective. And every voice that joins this conversation makes it richer, deeper, more real. The journey from being someone who gives endlessly to being someone who can truly receive love, it's not easy. It requires facing your shadow, questioning your identity, relinquishing control. It requires the courage to be vulnerable, the humility to need the wisdom to distinguish love from transaction. But it's worth it. Because on the other side of this transformation is something you've been hungry for your entire life, the capacity to be loved. Not for what you do, but for who you are. The bowl can hold water, the river can be nourished, the heart can rest, and you can finally truly receive. Thank you for taking this journey with me. Until next time, may you find the courage to face your shadow, the wisdom to integrate it, and the grace to receive the love that's been waiting for you all along.